Welcome to the Afterspin, opinions from thought leaders in our state. I want to ask Chris Fitzsimon and John Hood, we still aren't finished with legislative redistricting lawsuits. A three-judge panel heard arguments at the end of September about whether 4 districts in Wake County should be declared unconstitutional because they were redrawn without a court order and in mid-decade. Tell us what difference this makes, what implications it might have on November's elections, and how it might impact our legislature, Chris.
Well, it's not going to have any impact on November's elections, which early voting starts next 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks away. I do think it goes into this big mix of how we draw our legislative districts, which brings me, of course, to the whole point of we need to get the legislature out of the business of drawing the districts for political partisan gain. We need to, and there's an effort about that going on to make that happen. It also goes into the mix about the federal lawsuits that are proceeding. At some point, I think, in the next few years, the U.S. Supreme Court is going to issue a ruling on one of these congressional maps about how extreme partisan gerrymandering, and that's going to apply at some point when people point that out to legislative redistricting as well. So I think the end of this is coming. I think the extreme partisan gerrymandering. I don't know if it'll be sooner rather than later, but it's overdue.
John, your take on it.
Well, I think there are 2 takes. First, I think that it's true that we are going to reform redistricting in North Carolina. I don't think it'll happen through judicial fiat. I think that game is over, basically. The Supreme Court's not going to do that. But I do think we're going to make it happen through a legislative action that puts an amendment on the ballot for the people to approve. I'm confident that's going to happen, or at least I'm hopeful, and I'm going to turn that into being confident.
You said that on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I walked away from there saying, does he know something we don't know?
I know many things you don't know. I'm just not willing to share them.
Well, that part is true. Yeah.
But I think that that's certainly true. Now, the specific dispute here has to do with the Constitution prohibits legislators from redrawing the maps for Congress or the legislature in the middle of a decade. So you can't just, you redraw the maps, you have an election or 2, you don't like the outcome, you redraw them again, you have an election or 2.
Unless it's court order.
Now, we actually have had that happen, but that's because of court mandates, not because the legislature initiated it. The argument here is that in the midst of doing something that court mandated, the legislature also took the chance to redraw districts in Wake County to benefit the Republicans. The problem that the plaintiffs have here is the defendants could argue that other districts had to be redrawn, and it was a sort of a billiard ball effect, and you had to redraw other districts. That's what this dispute is about. It's about a very specific matter. It isn't about the broader issues of, for example, Voting Rights Act or the definition of that.
Those districts weren't impacted when the court ordered them to.
No, and that's the argument by the plaintiffs, that they took the opportunity to go in and redraw them for partisan gain, and that's what the court's going to have to decide.
Interesting. And any prediction as to when we might be getting a final verdict on this?
Oh, I would assume it would be sooner rather than later. I just don't, there's no hurry to get it done before the election. It doesn't have any effect on the election.
Back to your prediction about the fact that we're going to change this redistricting process.
I think we have a good chance of making that happen, yes.
Okay. When?
Well, the idea would be to...
If you're specific, give me some dates.
Well, put it through the legislature in 2019 or 2020 to be on the ballot on the fall of 2020. I think that's the scenario at the moment.
Interesting. Interesting. You concur?
Well, I hope that it's true, and I think as the legislature gets closer in partisan differences, I think it's more likely.
All right. Well, thank you for watching the Afterspin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.